Hello, everybody, and welcome to AACRAO's Credential Chats. Super exciting episode this week, joined by the Executive Director of AACRAO, Melanie. Golly, Melanie, thank you for agreeing to do this with me.
No problem. Thank you.
And we are here at a Digital Credential Summit. So hundreds of people getting together, just geek out on, the stuff that this community is really dedicated to. And so really appreciate Melanie being willing to get weird and, do this both digitally and in 3D, which, is kind of crazy these days to be side by side. But that way, just a fun place for us to start, especially with you being the executive director of AACRAO, and here you are at a digital credentials summit. But just why? Like, why is this a space that AACRAO, has a sense of responsibility to be showing up in and leading?
Well, Noah, our members as registrars, academic services, enrollment management, transfer, credential evaluation, all of the AACRAO professionals have something to do with credentials, whether it's the intake of credentials into a pathway for higher education, or if it's the issuance of credentials and the maintenance of the network of trust that credentials that credentials are a part of. It's really important that the higher education voice is heard in this space because there's a lot of real strong innovation happening in the workforce space. And we know that our learners want to have all of their learning recognized, whether it's from a third party, whether it's from a workforce, whether it's from an education institution. They want their learning valued and validated, and they want it recognized as they pursue their pathways towards a better life. And so it's really important for higher ed to be engaged in this space to the benefit of our learners. I also think that AACRAO members and higher ed and specifically has something to teach to the workforce space and the innovative credential space that's happening all around us, that our members and our institutions understand how to ensure that a credential has value and quality. And that's something that we can share with these other parties who are doing good work with our learners to make sure that our learners are really well served.
And I just want to like kind of follow up on that because I hear you talking about process versus these things like that a lot of time gets spent on figuring out what are these sexy, shiny new digital things. And I didn't really hear you go, other than the innovation word, I didn't hear you focus on, like, you didn't say blockchain. You did, you're focusing on process.
Absolutely. So I will say, and I think AACRAO members will agree that process is really important, and policy, big small p policy along with big p policy is really important. And that's actually how you make sure that trust is embedded within a credential, is that there is a consistency in practice, in process, and in policy to make sure that everything is clear and transparent to the learner and to the general consumer of the credential. And that's really where we shine. That's where AACRAO members really understand how to make things work.
I'm sorry that I just like got I dazzled there. I just want to like could take that and like make a like 1980s Scholastic catalog, like motivational poster of what you just said to put in my cubicle. Um I wanted to next ask you, as as leading for AACRAO with AACRAO, in this space, you're paying lots of attention. Some people can focus on, different types of development. What's something that you're focusing in on as you look at, where we were to where we are, as far as just what, what's impressed you or what have you noticed as far as just what has already happened?
Yeah, so I will say I've been engaged in this space for probably about 9 years myself.
Mm.
AACRAO was a founding member of an organization called the Groningen Declaration Network, or GDN is what we say, to make it easier, because that's a big Dutch word. It's really hard
Can you
to say.
spell it?
I can, but I'm not gonna. I've had to write it a lot. So AACRAO was engaged in the founding of that organization, and that organization envisions a digital, global, accessible, equitable learner data ecosystem. And that organization says that the goal is to have a learner be able to share the artifacts of their learning whenever they want, with whomever they want, and wherever they are.
Mm.
And so AACRAO has been engaged in sort of the digital ecosystem since Speedy, right? So that's been around for more than 30 years. And we haven't really gotten the uptake of that as we had hoped. There's a solid number of institutions that are doing that good work. But the problem is actually global. Our learners are global, and we need to make sure that whatever we do in the US connects with what's happening globally. And the thing that I am the most impressed about is, one, the pace at which it's evolved. So I never in a million years would have guessed that 10 years ago that we'd be where we are now in terms of the uptake and the energy and the momentum around this digital record ecosystem. And then the other thing that I would say is that all of the problems, and well, I don't want to say even problems, the issues, the challenges, the things we're thinking about in this space in the US, we're talking about being learner-centric. We're talking about interoperability. We're talking about better workforce alignment of our traditional credentials. All of these trends aren't just here in the US. These trends are actually international. And so the conversations that we are having in the US, they are not just a US conversation, they are a global conversation. And so we're engaging globally with the GDN, with other governments, with UNESCO, in order to ensure that as we have these conversations in the US, that we're recognizing that actually it's a global economy, it's a global society, and this ecosystem needs to be global as well.
Yeah, recognition for all of us, not just U period, S period.
Exactly.
And I love your learner-centered focus. I think that's very validating for anybody who's been joining for the last several weeks of Credential Chats. I think that's been a real theme that every single one of our guests has hit on is really centering the learner in this. And so I think it's validating to hear that, you know, at the executive director of AACRAO level, that's also something you're thinking about. And then just another thing I'd like you to follow up on, because you use that word ecosystem, I think 3 times there. And you know, that does feel like a shift, I think, for people in the records management space of, you know, maybe, and maybe I'm wrong about this, so tell me if I am wrong, but, you know, kind of a shifting focus of how broad and how many stakeholders there are in the ecosystem, how many nodes there are in the ecosystem of actually having touch points and meaningfully interacting with learning records. And so, you know, what's something that you would hope that AACRAO members might sort of expand their thinking or shift their thinking as they think about the ecosystem for learning records? Like who's in that ecosystem that might be stakeholders they haven't thought of before?
Yeah, so actually it's interesting. I hadn't really thought through that shift into an ecosystem, but it absolutely is an ecosystem. If you think about the way that institutions traditionally exchange records, they are going, you know, one institution to another. It's a point to point, you know, and it's initiated and it lands, and that's it. And it has to start all over again. The ecosystem envisions that exactly what you said, different nodes that are in different pathways and in what might have previously been silos. And so you think, you know, workforce learning, you've got your, I'm going to use like obvious, like Google certs and Microsoft certs, which are quality credentials that have a particular purpose. And then you've got your higher ed. Then you've got your like post higher ed kind of certificate kind of programs, or you might have sort of government kind of workforce related programs. All of these are all attainable by a learner, and the technology and the access to technology and the delivery of learning has evolved so much that learners are choosing their options from all over the place. And so we have to be prepared to be able to accept from all of those spaces. And then we have to be able to send to all of those spaces too, because our learners make an assumption that you're going, and they expect that you're going to recognize their skills, their competencies, their learning. They don't want to have to repeat things. And frankly, it's a waste of their time. And I would say our government might say a waste of taxpayer dollars. That's something we hear. And so it's really important to be thinking about all of learning as this interconnected web of ecosystem. And we have to make sure that all of the information embedded in that exchange has enough for each node to be able to act on it in the way that they need to. And actually the node that I forgot about was the employer node, right? Like, which is the node that is probably one of the hardest to grasp. And we're working on grappling with that in this big ecosystem.
And listening to you talk, do you think it's fair? Like, I have a perspective, my own learning records are about me as being covered in dust. I viewed them somewhere between, like 0 and a handful of times over decades of time. And listening to what you're describing, I almost feel like you're picturing a near future where learners themselves are interacting with their own learning records for, both in communicating between grad schools, employers, but also in their own future planning and their own. Like, are you picturing a future where learning records don't get covered in dust?
I am picturing a future where they don't get covered in dust. Absolutely. So that'll say the transcript that I have that is a signed sealed copy in an envelope with a signature across the flap. That's probably going to go
Scotch tape
away.
over the signature.
Right, exactly. That's going to go away. And as an artifact that has some value, but the value is limited. And in this digital ecosystem, the value can be exponential because in that digital artifact, you can embed more than just a course and a credit and maybe a degree. You can embed learning outcomes, you can embed skills, you can embed competencies, you can embed the metadata that ties to the quality assurance process of the credential. There's a lot more data that can be embedded in them. And so that's one, is that it will be much easier to consume those credentials and either place them or make whatever judgments you need in order to place someone in a pathway. But then the other thing is that we have evolved, I think, in our thinking around what a learner's journey looks like. And so I think in a knowledge economy, we're looking at more of a lifelong learning path as opposed to you go to high school, you get a high school diploma, then you go to college and you get a college degree, and then maybe you get another degree on top of that, and then you're done. In a knowledge economy, we're learning all the time. And I think that that's really going to be an important piece as we evolve. We're retiring later. We're doing jobs that we never would have thought about when we first went to college. And so we have to be adaptable in that way. And I think thinking about credentialing in this way will help motivate people to learn more so that they can contribute more and get more back. It's learning and jobs are all interconnected, and people want economic and social mobility. Like that's really a driving force. And so we need to find ways to make that more accessible, and incremental credentialing, more value, ROI kinds of credentials are absolutely a way to, one, give them that access, but two, inspire them on to the next step. You give someone one success and one bit of recognition, and that may inspire them to get back into the pipeline in a different way later on.
And that's just being inspiration. That is inspiring. And especially I think that, some of this stuff can be uncertain, and something that, I hear a lot in AACRAO professional conversations is the uncertainty is what's really uncomfortable. And so I think using the easy word, there's probably some people are going to be like, I'll believe it when I see it, Valerie. You may have people coming up to you in Columbus next month, holding you to it, saying, this better be easy. But the other thing that I heard you saying that, that this has always been, even before the new shiny stuff, about recognition, trust, and, another word that you've just used so many times the last 10 is value. That where this goes, where this kind of elevates, the importance of this work and the importance of the role of AACRAO members is, continuation of the recognition, continuation of trust, and an enhancement of the value probably.
Absolutely. That is 100%. And I think the thing that will be important to remember is whatever new shiny thing, there are going to be new shiny things like every day. There are the technology is moving so fast and the space is changing so quickly that there's always going to be a new shiny thing. But in order to make any new shiny thing work, that foundational skills that AACRAO members have, that's really what is going to make it all work. We have this like saying, it's evolved out of the last couple of conferences that AACRAO members are the implementers of success, right? And so I'm going to give Quintina Barnett Gallion a shout out for that one because she said it first. But implementers of success, you need that sort of, again, process, standards, policy in order to make all of that valuable.
I love that. And I want to be respectful of your time and everybody's time. So, and I'm jealous of implementers of success. Here I've been clumsily referring to us as bumper bowlers who help our colleagues avoid rolling gutter balls. And that just doesn't sound professional, I guess. So thank you for that. And thank you everybody who's doing this live and as well as who watches this recording. If you are not already part of the AACRAO community practice on the AACRAO Exchange, it is free to join. So please do sign up. Lots of great conversations happening there all week, every week. And we appreciate your time. Melanie, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.